Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of Trade the Chain. Today, I'm joining you from Istanbul, where it's 8 p.m., and we have Ryan, who's joining us from New York City. It's 1 p.m. there, and it's noon over at CJ's Spot in Chicago. Monty's off for the day. He put in with HR. We gave it to him, so he's I don't know. He's enjoying the pool or something. But, you know, the markets have been really interesting this week, and so I'm really excited to go. I mean, we had Bitcoin, which came down off a previous week of kind of volatility excitement. But now we've had Bitcoin over the last trailing 7 days hit the 9,000, going to the 9,000 range 3 times. And the same with Ethereum. Ethereum has retraced down to a low. I believe it was 319 and change, CJ. So I mean, those have been some dramatic moves over what we were seeing just a week, 2 weeks ago. But yeah, let's go to the big board. CJ, what do you got for us on Bitcoin?
Yeah, so I just want to start off with the S&P very briefly because we talked a lot about it yesterday or last week in the correlation between it and the stock market, or it and Bitcoin, excuse me. And so you can see that we're touching down on this 50-period moving average. So we're also on a red 6 of 9 sequential. So for the daily, that could mean more downside price action for the start of the week. But then again, I do like the fact that we're holding support as of now at this 50-period moving average. So we're pretty neutral in the S&P. But for Bitcoin, let's start here on the daily chart. So earlier in the week, we'd mentioned that there was a lot of correlation between the equity market and specifically Bitcoin. And we had this red 2 falling all the way down to approximately 10,000, then bouncing off the support at the 128-period moving average. And what I like to see, what's promising, at least from a bullish perspective, and I guess I'll just say generally, I'm bullish neutral right now. Not enough conviction to necessarily take a long, but I am bullish neutral. And this 128-period moving average, this green line right here, has been very strong support for Bitcoin throughout bull markets, especially throughout 2016 and 2017. If you go back and look at that data. What I also like to see from a bullish perspective is the fact that we're forming this green 2 candle that closed above the previous green 1 on the daily chart. Typically, that's a good buy indicator if you're trading with sequential in an uptrend. That being said, we just took a very large blow on the downside. So that's why I don't have just enough conviction yet to jump into this long trade on this green 2 above the green 1. So if we get some more bullish momentum and close the day with a green 3 candle going above the previous green 2, then that leads me to potentially consider a long and ride it all the way up to possibly this next resistance level at 11,000 or possibly 11,200. So any questions? That's what I'm seeing on Bitcoin as of now. Otherwise, I will move on to Ethereum.
Now, what are we looking at? A lot of people are asking, what are we looking at for the next steps? What are we looking at for the next week or two in the short term price action trajectory? Are we kind of stuck? Are we going to go sideways a little? And more or less, people are getting more at that. Okay, now we're mentally going to be tapping around the $10,000 mark resistance level. Are we going back to those worries, or are we making any further momentum to the upside?
I think we are, and I think when you look at that upward momentum, a lot of it's coming from the altcoins. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to our hot or not list, but the fact that Bitcoin is consolidating here and isn't really having a lot of volatility, at least for the last 6 days, leads other people to sometimes speculate on altcoins. And due to the fact that that price action in those altcoins, such as VGX, such as NEO, and some others that we'll discuss, that's pretty good from a bullish perspective. That means people are still speculating in the space with a bullish mindset. I also will agree with you, like it is a pretty tough sentimental level to get rejected from 11,000 on Bitcoin after we went all the way up here to 12,000. But at the same time, if we are able to hold this 128 period moving average, it's very promising to see that we're creating another higher low. So as in terms of like the next week or like the immediate price action that you suggested, if we turn to bullish momentum, I think we could very easily retest 11,000 because we don't really have any resistance here or here. Because if you look at both of these candles, the bullish 9, which we came up on, and then the bearish red 2 that we fell on, both of these are engulfing candles. And so little resistance or support was ever formed when those two occurred.
Well, I mean, listen, I mean, it's really just a hold to the sides of the boat right now, folks. I mean, there's nothing that looks like any sort of impending doom, you know, looking at the charts, but, you know, it looks like we're going to hold here for a while and hopefully get some strength and support to the upside. Now, you mentioned altcoins. You know, a lot of altcoins tied to Ethereum. Ethereum has had a very interesting chart the last 7 days. We have had, you know, over $100 retracement since its all-time high for the year. What are we looking at, and where's the correlation? Is there a correlation to the altcoin market that's affecting Ethereum? Ethereum has overall been a very good investment for the year, but how is that being directly correlated with the altcoin market and how they're doing?
Yes, I think it has a lot to do with that, specifically because of DeFi and the fact that you need to buy Ethereum in order to purchase many of these tokens. And the thing that I was talking to somebody about that I thought was a pretty good point that they brought up is that while some of these DeFi tokens can migrate to other chains, like I think Binance just released their smart chain, which can accommodate DeFi applications. That being said, I feel that the consumer and the speculator has a preference to remain in the ERC20 ecosystem, so it has more fungibility. So that's why I'm more bullish on Ethereum for many of the DeFi projects that will continue to build on it, despite these, you know, crazy high fees. But from a technical perspective, Ethereum's very similar to what we're seeing on Bitcoin. I mean, we're on the exact same green 3 and the green 2 yesterday that we saw. Now, unlike Bitcoin, we didn't go all the way down to the 128 period moving average. We're still stuck right beneath the 50 period. So in order for me to have enough conviction to place a long on that, I want to see us close above the 50 period moving average with strength before we can test some of these upper levels. But I believe we will if this you know, bull run and DeFi mania continues.
I mean, given
And
the,
you mentioned DeFi. Oh, I'm sorry, Ryan. Go ahead.
so given the volatility of these DeFi projects, despite, you know, Ethereum's upside, it appears to be, because of all the buying and selling of Ethereum, it appears to be subject to a bit more volatility than Bitcoin even. Do you think that's likely to continue? Do you think Ethereum will kind of, you know, have a little less volatility as these DeFi projects mature?
I don't think so. I think it's going to be more volatile. And if we just look at the mathematics of the market, Ethereum has a lower market cap than Bitcoin, and typically sometimes that will lead prices to react more radically or more volatile when compared to an asset with a larger market cap. That being said, I do think DeFi and a lot of these volatile price action that's coming from these tokens is affecting Ethereum and will continue to do so.
All right, very cool. I mean, you know, all this talk about DeFi, you know, you can't ignore one of the articles earlier this week. I mean, our good friend Rob over at Digital Asset News immediately texted me when this came out, but the sushi chef had left the kitchen. You know, right when everybody was gaining momentum in their mindset about DeFi and everything else, all of a sudden he pulls basically a Litecoin, right? So he cashes in all his sushi, the market just plummeted on that. I mean, down to $1 something. And, he tweeted out, I just don't want to be concerned about the price. Now, I get that. I actually ridiculously kind of get that in a way. But at the same time, I mean, scammy. So what do you think, CJ and Ryan, from a DeFi point of view, just when almost like it had gained everybody's trust and there was a lot of money being pumped into it, the chef leaves the kitchen. What do we got? What's going on?
That's a bad look. But optically, I mean, you have the guy who's running the project bouncing on it as soon as it achieves any success. How is anyone supposed to trust a project that the person who built it doesn't trust it? And it just, overall for the industry, it sets us back, I think, quite a bit. It's not helpful.
Oh, I agree. Listen, I'll be the first one to admit that I played around with Uniswap, went over to to Sushi, put a few shekels into a couple things over there and lost about 60% of my bag over the course of the last week and a half. So I understand where people are going, but how is anybody supposed to take this seriously? I mean, CJ, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, we saw what happened to Yam, right? And it's
that was just a test, CJ. That was just a test.
Yeah, so that's in the same boat here, and I think Ryan makes an extremely good point when he says if the founder isn't willing to stick around when there's even a first bit of success, can you really trust that as an investment? And I don't think so. And while he does say, price doesn't matter or whatever, sometimes people will say that about Bitcoin. There's they'll say price doesn't matter. But the reality is that Bitcoin's security model relies on the asset having value and having sufficient value in order for the miners to want to have an incentive to secure the network. So, yeah.
Agreed. All right. Well, I mean, we'll let the market dictate this one. You see where the chart is, you see where the price was and where it's gone. Do your own due diligence on it. Let's go into the hot or not list. We have 4 this week that we placed into the programming here. The first one is NEO. What do we have on NEO? What's this looking like?
So NEO's had a very nice run. And, I was talking about that green 3 coming through with momentum and just the fact that we hadn't seen it on Bitcoin or Ethereum yet. So that didn't really give me enough conviction to get into a long trade. The opposite is true with NEO here. On the daily chart, we have a nice bullish candle that's showing me a lot of bullish momentum in a day where the majority of the crypto market is either negative or flat. Like Bitcoin's down 0.5%, not really doing anything. But the fact that these altcoins, specifically NEO, has the strength to be able to perform in that market tells me if Bitcoin goes back up and continues its kind of bullish to neutral climb, I think NEO will have a very nice probability of retesting these previous highs. And then if we do get to those previous highs, I will go long again because I like the concept of buy high, sell higher, especially in crypto.
All right. On to one of our group favorites, VGX Voyager. What are we looking at with Voyager this week? I know Steve has been crushing it over there.
Yeah. There's pretty evident cause for why we had this price spike yesterday. But let's just see. I'm just curious. I want to see how many percent it went up. So it was up 53% at one point during the day, which is, we've seen that before, but that's pretty astounding. And I really love the TA from a daily perspective. I mean, we go all the way down on a red 9, and then we flip off the 128 period moving average. Then we get this green 1, and then we got really bullish news yesterday about Voyager, which Scott Melker, the Wolf of All Streets, tweeted about. As he says, Voyager, they are balling. Preliminary revenue for the fiscal quarter ended and has increased materially and is expected to approximate 2.1 million
Wow.
when compared to only 700,000. So I think a lot of people saw this, and this is kind of like you've had Steve on the show, we've been bullish on Voyager, but this is kind of further proof that they're really doing a good job, and the price action was clearly reflected in that yesterday when we had that 50% boom. But then perfectly rejected on the 50-period moving average, and now we're on a little bit of a correction phase.
Okay.
So we have on the not list, some tokens that aren't doing nearly as well. CELO and Ethereum Classic. I think Ethereum Classic's struggles have been well documented in the news. But what's pulling down CELO lately?
I just think it's a lack of buyers stepping in after our recent top. And as you can see, we are kind of falling below a lot of these moving averages and going below support. And like I said, when we break these particular levels and we have this bearish momentum that just never really ceases, there's just a lack of buyers and nobody really wants to step in. What's kind of nice is that we are reaching a red 8 tomorrow, which might be a trend reversal, or at least indicative of a trend reversal. It's telling us that this bear trend and what we've experienced the last 2 weeks, or what anyone has experienced holding CELO, it's the bulls are a little bit overdue to step in, or a little due to step in, rather. So that's what's going on with CELO.
And with Ethereum Classic, do you think it's it appears that it's going to continue this downward trend for some period of time until they can kind of right the ship on their end, no?
And I mean, Ryan and I just sat down with their executive director on an episode of the show last week, actually. I mean, going to that episode, if you look through that episode, she's very compelling. Liz is a smart woman, and she had very good, stories and explanations, and they're implementing various security on these 51% hacks, which, are not completely 100% their fault. But yet it just seems like, and rightfully so, to Ryan's point, consumer confidence is a little bit of a factor here.
Yeah, absolutely. I know we talked about this last week or a couple of weeks ago about the delisting or potential delisting from Binance, or no, OKX it was, I believe.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so that's not going to be good for consumer confidence. Neither are these 51% attacks. But from a technical perspective, we kind of got this doji 9 candle and are bouncing off bullish a little bit, at least for now, and are in neutral territory. But I'm not willing to buy this, especially with declining consumer confidence. We don't really know, and it's kind of a wild card. And like Ryan said, it kind of just appears if we're going to keep going down, at least in the interim.
All right, very cool. Well, I mean, this seems to be a good ending point here. The market continues to be interesting. From a personal note, I'm a little frazzled. We're at that mental 10,000 line. I know CJ, you're always hanging tough with the charts. So you never show any worry at all. You're very stoic. But yeah, no, this has been good, and I just hope, from a perspective, I know I saw a couple things. One is we still have really high Ethereum gas fees going on. It's which is negating some of the market over there, as well as I also saw an article that came out today that balances are low with Ethereum on exchanges and some other things. I'm still upbeat. I'm still upbeat with things going in the up direction. Volatility has created a lot more volume this month than it did last month across the exchanges. I know we have a little more open interest with some derivatives action across a couple of exchanges. Are you, CJ, Ryan, buyers, sellers, holders? Where are we for the next week?
I mean, I'm always Bitcoin every week, buying the dips and still accumulating when it goes higher. It's more of a long-term play for me, I think. You know, I'm not worried about the short-term price action there. Ethereum, I'm a little bit more cautious on just because of the congestion issues, the upcoming switch over to proof of stake versus proof of work, and what's going on with DeFi. I'm not as much of a degenerate gambler as I used to be.
Yeah,
CJ, buying, selling, holding over the course of the next week.
From the macro perspective, I wouldn't mind picking up a little if you're dollar cost averaging, especially when you're knocking off or you're bouncing off this green moving average, which has been great historical support. And if all we have to go on is history, then I'm going to take that. And what I say to people when they ask me, you know, am I too late to get into Bitcoin or whatever? I say, if you're in it for the long term, the best day to buy Bitcoin was yesterday. So.
Well, there's some good sound advice. Folks, thanks for joining us. CJ, Ryan, myself, we will see you guys next week. Hopefully Monty as well. You know, crypto on. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.